Welcome to the Beyond the Event podcast, your home for exclusive tips, trends, and stories from local event professionals. So get ready and let's go beyond the event.
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Beyond the Event podcast. This is our first episode with a professional photographer, so I'm very excited and a little bit biased because Sarah was actually our wedding photographer and did a fantastic job. We still use our photos in profile pictures, background pictures. I have our wedding photo up in my office, credit to her. So it's been a while since we last connected, and so I'm really excited to just chat everything photography related and how you contribute, to the event space and just learn more about you other than what we already know, and then more importantly, your business and working with clients and things like that. So just to get started, Sarah, if you don't mind doing just kind of a quick, like any podcast, just a quick intro, who you are, what you do, what you specialize in, and more importantly, we can kind of jump right into kind of how you got started. That's always a nice way to start, is just a backstory.
Yeah, sounds good. So yeah, thank you for inviting me to be here. Really excited. So my name is Sarah. I own Sarah Wockenfuss Photography. I have been in business now since 2014. So this is my 11th year going in. I specialize in weddings and family portraits, headshots, a little bit of everything, but weddings is really how I got started. So I focus mainly in like the Baltimore, Frederick, Carroll County area, but I also travel a lot. I've been to Utah for a wedding. I've been to New York. I've been to Colorado. So it's really fun to be able to work in different places. Um, but I guess ultimately how I got started was um, in college, I would say. Like I always had an interest in photography, and then in college, I did film photography classes. So like really learning the basics, and that's what really like excited me. Um, so I did an internship with a photojournalist, which was a lot of fun, and then I did one with a wedding photographer. So ultimately, that internship turned into, my business, my livelihood, my career, and I'm just really thankful that I did take that jump and, do that internship. So it's been a lot of fun the past 11 years, and I really do love working within the wedding industry.
Yeah, that's awesome. That just unloaded like 3 to 4 questions I have to remember all at once. For one, I will remember by saying, when you got started with the internship, like when did the passion hit, I guess, really to kind of specialize in the wedding space? Was it with the internship with the wedding photographer?
I'm gonna say yes because prior to that, I had been to like one wedding in my life. So I didn't know
Yeah.
anything about weddings. And then I think I did like 5 or 6 that year, and like seeing all of the different events and how they can be so different and getting to work with the couples one-on-one was like, yes, this is it. Like I want to be here.
Wow. Yeah. And 11 years doing this, I don't know, like, could be stereotypical to say that some people that work 11 years at a job, they might think that it's just the same stuff, different day mindset. You still have the same passion and drive, from 11 years ago to today. It's still thriving.
Yes, I definitely think so. I think what keeps like that passion alive is one, like the different trends in the wedding industry and how like you see new things every year. Let alone like you see different things at every single wedding. I've never done two weddings that are exactly the same. So I think that's what keeps it like really fresh to me is seeing all of my clients' takes on their perfect wedding.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to talk about, especially for a photographer on this podcast, is the style of shooting, because you can see different, like, and I don't know the lingo behind it, but like vibrant versus maybe more dark or shaded. I don't know the words, but I pulled up your Instagram just to kind of maybe make some sense of the terminology behind it, which we'll get to in a second. But I was curious, before we move on, the Colorado and New York and all the other out of town, or out of state, I should say, weddings, were those, how in the world would you get those clients? Did they reach out, or was it people you knew?
So the first one in New York was a client's sister. So
Hmm.
they're from Maryland, and then got married in New York. And then the second one was a friend in Colorado, And then the third one was a couple from our area, like, Westminster, Hampstead-ish area. And they just wanted to elope there and they
Wow.
decided they wanted to book me. So I went with them and it was
Yeah.
great.
The client, you said it was the client's sister did the New York one.
Yes.
That's got to be, in my opinion, the highest sense of achievement or whatever that, or like sense of referral, like, right? Like, hey, you were so good for our wedding that my sister wants to book you out of state, like, and willing, instead of looking at a photographer in that area, like, we want to bring you with us, basically. Like, that's such an accomplishment, I feel like.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it made me super happy and I was just thrilled that they wanted me to, photograph another wedding within the family. So,
Yeah. And one of my favorite questions, because I used to do some video when I first started in business, like right after high school, and I was very obsessed, and still am actually. I just don't have all the equipment. I sold it all, but like I self-taught myself all that stuff, like the lenses and the types of cameras, the types of, full frame, all that stuff. I can't remember. Are you team Nikon or Canon?
Canon.
Canon. Yeah, that's what I used for filming back in the day. And I used to have all like the stabilizers and handheld
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, I wasn't sure which side you used or you know. Do you think that makes a big difference? I mean, I think for sure I could almost answer this for you that like you would agree that like a Canon T Rebel or something you can buy at Walmart isn't going to produce, or does it, the quality needed or required for to be more of a high end or luxury, like the type of stuff that you put out. Can you get that with any camera, or do you need the expensive stuff?
So I think that's like a loaded question. So photography is all about light and knowing how to use the light, shape the light. Some cameras, obviously, like they can produce a photo that can be printed bigger versus like a lower end camera where the megapixels are less. Like you can't print it as big. So I feel like that's really um, one thing that like is a big difference there. But at the end of the day, a good photographer can use even their cell phone to take a good picture.
Really?
Like, now,
Wow.
granted, like that is not high quality. Like you couldn't go and print a 16 by 20 of that. I mean, maybe you could and it would look, I don't know, mediocre. But it's all about the way you work with the light. And I would say that more so, a lot of it is in the lenses versus the bodies, like being able to shoot wider open in different circumstances. Like it just creates a different look. So I think that like I said, that's a loaded question because even nowadays you have content creators
Yeah.
who specifically use their cell phone. So,
Yeah.
you know,
And it looks good digitally, but then I wasn't even thinking like maybe for the print aspect, like um I don't want to turn my camera, but like we have, I don't know, this thing's bigger than me. Like I can't even stretch my arms how big we have the printout. Well, I'll try. Let's see. Do you see it might
oh
not
yeah, yeah.
focus,
Oh,
but
I
it's
love that
all the
photo.
way, I can't even reach that far, but it's up there on the wall in my
Yeah.
office. That's a huge print and it looks fantastic. So um that's interesting about the lighting. I definitely would assume that lighting is a big aspect of it, but and if I remember correctly from back from our wedding, you have like all the flashing lights for like we were under a tent, and then like how much of an impact does that make, whether like the surrounding area, whether you're indoors and you have those lights that flash when you take the picture, when it bounces off of maybe like a barn wall or ceiling versus a white tent that's going to give more of a reflection, how much skill does that take to really adjust that lighting on the spot?
I think it takes a lot of experience because, you bring up a barn. You can't bounce a light off of an orange wall like you can bounce a light off of a white tent.
Right.
So, like personally in barns, like I never bounce. I have my flashes, my off-camera flashes in different spots, and they're directed at the subject. Because if you bounce it off of an orange wall, your subject is then orange. I mean,
Yeah.
there's editing you can do to correct color and whatnot, but I try to get it right in camera right off the bat. Like it saves me time. Um, it's a lot of, like I said, kind of the experience of knowing what kind of lighting you need in that moment. Because sometimes, like when you're working at a new wedding venue you've never been to in person, you don't know what you're showing up to. Like you
Right.
have to be prepared and know, like I can light this space with, one, my equipment, and two, the knowledge. So definitely a big part of it is knowing how to light your space.
Right. And not to mention weather, right? Like if it's cloudy versus sunny, which angle, like if they're at the sun's at their backs or turning them this way, like, the shadows under the eyes, there's a lot that goes
Yeah.
into it, which is why I really appreciate doing this podcast, because it's helping others learn and things to look out for. So kind of speaking more towards the client side, how do you take a couple and create a unique, like you say, there, no wedding is the same. And how do you think about these things on the spot? I pulled up your Instagram, and I don't know if it's pinned or if it's recent, but like I'm looking at this staircase photo. Where is that your idea, their idea? Like how much of the magic comes from Sarah versus like just having a photographer? Like, could anybody hit this shot, or is that like a unique touch that you bring to your client's side?
So I will say, like, that venue, Cloisters Castle, like that is a very popular, like everyone wants to use that staircase. It is
Yeah,
awesome. But you
it
do have
looks
to know how
amazing.
to light it. Like you have to know how to light it. You have to know how to pose them in, a way they're gonna look good, because if you're looking straight up, it's not as flattering. So like stuff like that. But I do have a lot of people specifically request that photo. But they see my photo online and they're like, hey, I want that. And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, I can do that for you. But like in other circumstances, like most of my wedding days, it is me, finding a good location for my clients, knowing what they want. Like I send out a questionnaire that kind of gives me a general idea of like, hey, I like this spot of the venue. Can we use that? I keep that in mind. I see that spot. I'm like, okay, well, this, and this, like these are going to be the good angles. Like I've worked with you before. I know the poses I want to use here based off of like their personalities. And height and weight and everything. It just all comes into play. And it is a lot of like artistry and trusting the photographer. So yeah, that's a great question too. These are
yeah.
great.
Yeah, I definitely have a knack for asking pretty in-depth or just brain picking questions. Speaking of the next question, when it comes to, I know we talked about the equipment itself, but when we talk earlier about like the style, so could somebody just share, are you at the level, I would assume like you're at a level where I just say, hey, this photo is kind of like the style that we're looking for in terms of photography. Is that something that like, could you do anything in terms of the style, or do you stick to maybe the vibrant, bright, or whatever, style that you like, what style are you essentially?
So I would say that my style is vibrant. The colors are true to life. It's crisp. I like the photos to look like their wedding days did. Um,
Yes.
And that's a huge part of my business. So that's my style. That's what I stick with. If someone comes to me and says, like, hey, I want more of like a dark, brownish, moody-ish tone, that's when, I say, hey, I'm not the photographer for you, but here are some great photographers. And I think a lot of photographers have that same mindset where we stick with our styles. Um, and if we're not your style, like, there's another photographer out there for you.
Right. Yeah, no, with photography, I could definitely see that being a relative thing. I would say that we could relate to that too. Like if we have, if we get a request for something that we don't carry or we're not experienced with, like for example, we don't have tent flooring at all. So if somebody asked us for tent flooring, we would just sub that out. And if we could still get the rest of the job, great. But if not, we'll pass the whole thing off because
Mhm.
it's not in our wheelhouse, essentially. I was very curious with that in mind of photography. Like if somebody asked for a type of style or look that you're unable to perform, I feel like it just puts vendors in bad spots because if they take it on and they can't get that lighting, and it's like you
Yeah,
bit off more than you could chew, so to speak. So, but I
I agree.
understand that when people get into business, it's like you want the job, you're going to try to learn it, but then next thing you know, you're self-teaching yourself, a whole different. I mean, even though it's still photography, it's still like you say, I love that word as an art. Like creating these pictures are it's art.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so in terms of technology changing, we got married in 2019 and now we're in 2025. Has there been any advancements with either equipment itself or just the process? Like the first thing that comes to mind is like maybe back in the 80s or 90s or whenever like floppy disk, right? Like maybe there was a photographer that like here's all your photos on this floppy disk. I don't even know what they did back in the day. And then maybe it's a USB drive that you mail out, and then now it's all cloud based or whatever. Like, has technology played a big role in the photography space?
I think so, yes. So like what comes to mind first since your wedding is the switch to mirrorless SLRs. And I think I switched at the end of 2019. That's when I bought my very first one. And for me, it's a game changer because they focus quicker. They're a lighter camera body, which is a big deal when you're carrying around. I have two cameras all day long, and I'm like, man, they're
Yeah,
heavy. So saving that weight and whatnot was a big game changer for me. But another thing that I think in the last few years has become popular and really helpful is AI within photo. So,
interesting.
like calling the images. So, I go to a wedding, I take 3,000 photos. That's a lot to go through. So, recently, I started using some AI software that helps with that. So basically, like it'll go through and take out all of the photos with closed eyes or like test photos, just stuff that I wouldn't include no matter what. And it takes a level of that out. So that's been a huge game changer for me, especially now, having a baby and having less time. I'm like, man, if I can even save an hour, like that's a big win for me. So I think that technology has been the biggest game changer for me in the last few years.
Wow, I did not even think about that. Yeah, we use AI constant. I use AI all the time, more so on business projects, but I was teaching our sales team like if you have a question about a 10 or like if you need to know like the perimeter or how many tables can fit, sure we have all the charts, but events are unique. So it's like if a client gives us dimensions or says, "Hey, we have this band coming in and they have this unique thing or a special photo booth or something, then it's this big." Like we don't know off top of the head, like it's a unique thing that we have no experience with. So like I'll literally AI is insane. You can throw all that stuff in and say what size tent do I need for this and this, and like it pumps out the a breakdown, and then you can ask it follow-up questions, and it's been very game changing. I never even thought that like AI can analyze the photos and ditch out the bad ones and save time with editing, yet alone I'm sure we're going to see a day where you just click a button. And I think that we might lose a little bit of authenticity there if there's ever a day where AI, just does all the editing for you or whatever.
I mean, it does edit too. So,
Yeah,
but I'll use AI for like base edits. I still go
yeah,
through and adjust every single image. So
yeah,
it's like it gets me most of the way there, but in order to like really give that finished product that I deliver, I go through and I'm like, okay, hold on, we need to change all these things. So
yeah,
it takes a while on that end, but really the calling is like the biggest thing for me that I love.
yeah. Especially with that many photos. Speaking of that many photos, you've got uh getting ready, you've got maybe rehearsal, maybe the day before, you've got the setup, you've got the ceremony, the reception. What's the most fun throughout the day, would you say? Is it like the anticipation before the ceremony? Is it probably the reception because that's where the fun happens? Like, what part do you look forward to the most throughout a big wedding day?
So that's hard because like every part of the day is exciting for different reasons. But I think from like the photography creative standpoint, my favorites are the couples portraits, getting them some really awesome portraits that, they're gonna hang on their walls. Like that's such a huge thing. But like the fun aspect, I love receptions.
Hmm.
I love just capturing people on the dance floor, having the best time ever. You're an hour, 2 hours into the reception, groomsmen have ties on their head, people are really getting into the dancing. Like I love capturing that.
Yeah,
That's like where I'm just like thriving. Like let's get the party started.
yeah. You have a lot of maybe events to go through to really answer this question, but is there any like off the wall first thing that comes to mind of like the craziest thing you've seen at a wedding in terms of like capturing a photo? Like, is there anything that stands out?
That is hard because there's like the amount of weddings I've
Right.
photographed. I don't think one thing comes across my mind. One thing, or like, I guess one really cool place that I went I think it was 2 years ago now. We did engagement sessions in the Bromo Seltzer Tower in Baltimore. I thought that was such a cool spot for photos. You go up this little elevator all the way up to the top, and then you've got these little stairs you go up, and then you're in a giant like clock tower. So you have like the clock faces everywhere. Um,
Wow.
I'll say that's one location that really stands out to me that I thought was really cool. Like, wow, I'm here doing this. It's my job, and like it's awesome.
Yeah. Um, when it comes to the more back onto the client side, what does it look like? How would you say from your perspective, how would somebody know I'm dealing with a real photographer, so to speak? Because I feel like it is a pretty saturated, like you would assume, you would agree there's a lot of options when someone's getting married, right? Like to pick from. What would you say if you were to help a client listening? Maybe there's three things or two things or one thing that really like can help them narrow down the decision making and say like this is how you can determine value that maybe they can't see because they don't know the differences. What would be a couple of those things for a new bride and groom or a new couple to look for?
So, one thing that I tell pretty much anyone who inquires with me, and it's a big thing, um, when a bride and groom are looking for a wedding photographer, the most important thing, in my opinion, is that they like the photos and they like all of the photos. So, ask for full galleries. Like you want to see someone's wedding day from the beginning to the end. When you go on someone's website, it's like a highlight reel of a million different weddings, maybe not a million. Um, and when you go to wedding shows and they have printed photos, they're the highlights. Like I say to people,
Mm,
I have all these photos on my table at wedding shows, and I say, this one photo is really great. I know you guys love it. But what if the other 800 photos in their gallery are terrible and you book me off of this one photo? Like, you're going to be so mad. So I tell everyone, ask for a full gallery. And if that wedding photographer has done a wedding at the venue you chose, like, ask for a full gallery from that venue. You want to get an idea that you like the getting ready photos, you like the ceremony photos, you like the reception photos. Like, it's not all about those beautiful, like, portraits, because I think the portraits are what a lot of people focus on, and as they should. I love them, but you need to make sure you like all of their work. So that's a big thing for me, um, is being able to say that you like their photos. But also something else to look out for, like make sure your photographer can provide, has insurance and they can provide a COI to venues. Like that's a big thing. A lot of venues require
mm,
that. So you want to make sure they have that. Um, and I think another thing is just like being aware of what you're getting. Are you getting high resolution photos? Are you getting low resolution? Are you getting an album? Like just being able to like talk to that photographer and get a good sense of like where what your money is getting you. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's actually really interesting. And very helpful for me. Not that I ever plan on getting married again, but just for listeners, that's really, really important to think about, the whole album versus just, one photo, going off of one photo. I guess you could say that's pretty similar. I guess relating it to a DJ, right? Like, oh, play me a song and I'll let you know if I like you or not. Like, well, what about the next song or the next song? That's actually really a good way of looking at it. Um, Gosh, I lost my train of thought on the next question I had as you were answering that. Well, I know I had a question earlier that I wanted to ask, so I'll try to throw that in here. I find it very, I don't think impressive is the word, but like admirable that this is your like you said earlier, like your livelihood. I feel like a lot of photographers might, do it on the weekends or do it as a side hustle, so to speak. This is like your bread and butter, right?
yes, 100%.
Yeah, and it's been that way for a while. That's actually
Yeah.
really, really something to be proud of for sure. Just knowing that other people, other photographers, they might be in the startup stage or whatever, but to really go 11 years behind the lens, like I feel like that's definitely something to be really proud of.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think I started, like I said, in 2014. It's so funny how like I just dates escape me, but I'm pretty sure I made the jump to full time in 2016, I want to say. So it was fairly quick. I had a few years under my belt and I said, it's time to devote all my time to this, and I've never looked back. So,
Yeah.
I have a lot. I have my clients to thank for that. I have really all the referrals, just people sharing my work. Like that's the biggest thing. I think I maybe paid for Wedding Wire my first year. And other than that, like I don't pay to advertise anywhere. So almost all of my work is word of mouth.
Wow. Yeah, that's even more impressive. That's fantastic. And it's such a like the sister in New York from a past client. It's just a token of appreciation and gratitude to say that your work, I guess you could say, really speaks for itself, that you're sought after in terms of they see your work, they want that for themselves, and you really don't have to market or put yourself out there if it's going and flowing like that. What is, I mean, at your level now, what's a busy year in terms of like how many, I'm scared to ask, how many, because it's gonna be, I know you guys sometimes go through like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday triple header and stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't even want to know the answer, but how many weddings is like a massive year?
So 2 years ago, I did 49 weddings.
Oh my gosh,
Just
and there's 52 weeks in
like
a year, so I know there are
right,
probably
right.
some doubling
Yeah.
up.
So that year was really busy. And while like I thrived, like I love working under pressure. That's a big thing. And I think that's why I like weddings so much because like things change last minute. You've got to hurry up and do this, this, and this. Like I love it. But so that was a big year, and I will say I don't think I will do that many ever again. Um, but I on average between 30 and 35 is like where I like to sit.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And with the rest of the shoots, graduation photos, yes, no? Yeah.
mhm. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, you probably do. Oh, our timer just hit, so we got a couple minutes left here. So when it comes to those other shoots, headshots, I think I see a baby here. That's fantastic.
Oh, baby.
I feel like that is special. Is that your baby?
It may have been if it's on
It's
my
like the fifth
Instagram.
photo.
Let me pull
Eight
it up.
months of Aspen.
Yep, that's her. That's my
Oh
girl.
wow. Oh my goodness. I said a baby. That's why I thought you were laughing. But no, that is so amazing. You like we have family photos with you as well, and you create memories outside of, just the wedding. And I feel like having really strong rooted connections with your clients, it does go beyond the wedding. So it's like the newborn stage or all the way up to graduation. I think that'd be cool. Obviously, you have to be, I would imagine, longer in the game to take like, well, let's use me for example. You got our wedding. We've done family photos, which by the way, we're due for new ones. I think Brittany was pregnant when when
Yes,
we did the Gettysburg one. So we get family photos again. And then just imagine doing like Bailey's graduation photos
that
or
would be
something, like just to
wild.
see the whole life story unfold with
Yeah.
clients. I think that's just fantastic. Um,
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I remember my question that I forgot earlier. It was more on a business side. So you said you don't market much. Wedding shows, networking events, things like that, where other than word of mouth, I know that's a big player, but like also with venues and working with other vendors, what's the biggest spot or where do you spend most of your time connecting with others in the industry?
So I will say like the Cloisters Castle, I do their open house a lot. So I guess you can consider that advertising. But that like I've connected with a lot of awesome vendors through there, and I work with a lot of them, year round at many weddings, and it's really cool when you have that team of vendors that always works together. You show up at a wedding, you're like, yes, this is gonna be a good day.
Yeah,
But I would say that, and like I do a lot of local networking. So, I'm in Westminster. I attend like chamber events and just whatever little networking events I can find. I do find them really beneficial. It has slowed down since having Aspen, but like I really want to get back out there and be able to connect with other local businesses. Because some people I go to those events and that's like, oh, this is potential headshot work. And oh, like they need family photos and I need their service. Like, so I think that's a really important space to get connected is just local networking events.
yeah, yeah. Especially, I know you said more Baltimore area, but you would travel, right? You said Frederick, like
Yeah.
you would do pretty much the whole loop. So, but yeah, I'm really proud of you for sure, especially with being we're getting old now. We're in our 30s, but being near the same age, actually, do we have the same birthday,
Same
don't we?
birthday.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Not only the same age, we literally have the same birthday. Every year I forget, and then I see your thing pop up.
Yes, I
So
know. That's so funny.
literally the exact same age, same birthday, and everything. We're getting older, and just to see your success through the years, like when we hired you, I don't think it was really any like to sit like we just wanted to go with you from day one, and then like you're still doing it, and I love that because I do feel like a lot of when you're not passionate about it and you're not, that's why I was asking like one of the first questions, like 11 years later you're still doing it. um I don't know, like I feel like it's so easy to just like let life get in the way of things, and you're still doing the thing that you love, and I think that speaks volumes in terms of if somebody were to hire you moving forward. And I would assume that I wouldn't say only getting started because you're clearly doing very well for yourself. Um, but I would imagine like the future's still bright. Like you're at a position now, like you said, like you get to choose if you want to take on these dates or whatever, and the demand's high. And so I'm just very proud of you for that. And I really appreciate you coming on for this episode here. And is there any last remarks as we close this out that you would maybe want to share as we look to 2025? Anything within the photography space?
I think more so in the client space, I would like to tell everyone to, don't always follow the trends. Do what you want, in every aspect of your wedding day. As long as you have vendors to guide you and help that vision come to life, I think it's really important to not feel like you have to do everything that everyone wants within, like I said, every aspect of the wedding day, not just photography, not just a tent, not just like your florals. Like if you want something, like talk to your vendors, they're the professionals. Um, and make sure it's something that is realistic. 'Cause that's another thing. Like you don't want to come into an event with these high expectations that can't be met due to, many different kinds of limitations. But I'd say like that's the biggest thing there. But yeah, book your photographer early.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's end with that. What is the right timeline? I know there's guides and AI, chat GPT you could ask, but like from your perspective, what is the right timeline to get your photographer booked?
So I would say book your photographer as soon as you book your venue. So get that venue book, get that date, reach out to your photographer because, like me, I do book 1.5 to 2 years in advance.
Hmm.
But also with that, really quick, book your vendors in the order of your importance. So if you value having a really awesome caterer over a photographer, like book them first and then kind of go down the line. But just, for reference, a lot of photographers do book a year to two in advance.
Wow. Man, I wish we could keep going because that's another great tip. You're fully loaded with some value there.
Right.
So, Sarah, I really appreciate it. I'm gonna drop the link, everybody below, to click the link and give Sarah a follow on her Instagram. Are you into TikTok? You doing any TikToking?
No, I
No?
should. That's next on the list.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome, Sarah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yes, thanks for having me, and we'll reconnect soon.